Picture this. It is 40,000 years ago. You have just spent the entire day walking. You are hungry, you are exhausted, and out there in the dark, something is watching you, actually watching you, with eyes designed specifically for night vision, with claws the size of your hand, with a brain that has concluded after careful consideration that you look absolutely delicious. Welcome to the Pleistocene, where humans were not at the top of the food chain, where going to sleep was a genuine gamble, and where surviving long enough to have children required an almost supernatural combination of intelligence, cooperation, and frankly, nerve. Today we're going to find out exactly what ancient humans were up against, the predators they faced, the strategies they used, and how a relatively small, slow, fangless, clawless primate somehow managed to survive and eventually dominate a world full of things that very much wanted to kill them. Some of this is going to make your skin crawl, some of it is going to genuinely impress you, and all of it is going to make you deeply, profoundly grateful that the most dangerous thing outside your front door is a slightly aggressive seagull. Let's go. Before we talk about how ancient humans dealt with predators, we need to talk about what those predators actually were, because the Ice Age was not like the modern world. The predator lineup was considerably more terrifying. Let us start in Europe. The cave lion, Panthera spelaea. This was not a lion like the ones you have seen on a wildlife documentary. This was a lion that would make a modern African lion look modest. Cave lions were roughly 10% larger than modern lions, and modern lions can already kill a zebra without breaking a sweat. They had no mane, they were fast, silent, and capable of taking down prey the size of a horse. And they lived in caves, the same caves ancient humans were trying to shelter in. So right away, finding a nice cave for the winter was not simply a matter of walking in and putting your stuff down. It was a matter of checking very carefully whether something enormous and murderous had already claimed it, which is a level of stress that most of us, thankfully, have never had to deal with when looking for accommodation. Then there was the cave hyena, Crocuta spelaea, larger than modern spotted hyenas, with bone-crushing jaws strong enough to shatter the femur of a mammoth. These were pack hunters that would absolutely take on a human group if the opportunity presented itself. Cave bears, Ursus spelaeus, enormous, up to 1.5 tons in the largest individuals. Though mostly herbivorous, they were fiercely territorial, and a threatened cave bear was a lethal cave bear. Again, caves. The humans needed them. The bears already had them. And then, if all of that was not enough, there were wolves. Not modern wolves, Ice Age wolves. Larger, more heavily built, hunting in coordinated packs across open terrain. They were not necessarily focused on humans as prey, but they absolutely would take an opportunity if one presented itself, particularly with children, the elderly, or anyone separated from the group. Oh, and in parts of Asia and the Middle East, you could add leopards, ambush predators that drop on prey from trees and rocks, and the occasional scimitar-toothed cat, which is exactly as alarming as it sounds. The world ancient humans lived in was genuinely, objectively dangerous in a way that is almost impossible for modern people to fully internalize. This was not the background hum of theoretical risk. This was active, daily, immediate threat. So, what did they do about it? Here is the single most important thing ancient humans had going for them, and it is not a weapon, and it is not physical strength. It is other people. No lone human was surviving in an Ice Age predator landscape. Alone, a human is slow, relatively weak, with no natural weapons, poor night vision, and no armor. Alone, a human is honestly a pretty poor excuse for an apex predator. No offense. But together, humans become something else entirely. Groups of 15 to 50 individuals, the typical size of a Paleolithic band, could mount a coordinated defense against almost any predator. A cave lion approaching a group of 20 humans armed with spears and torches and making a tremendous amount of noise is not facing easy prey anymore. It is facing a genuinely risky confrontation, and predators, being fundamentally rational creatures, generally prefer not to die. Most large predators operate on a cost-benefit calculation. Is this meal worth the risk of getting injured? Because an injury for a wild predator is potentially fatal. A broken leg, a deep wound, an infected bite. In the wild, these are death sentences. No prey is worth that risk if the prey is putting up a serious fight. Ancient humans figured this out. They made themselves not worth attacking. Noise was a weapon. Shouting, screaming, banging rocks together, percussion, a sudden wall of sound from a coordinated group will cause most predators to hesitate or retreat. Modern wildlife researchers still use noise as a predator deterrent for exactly this reason. Numbers were a weapon. Predators do not want witnesses. They do not want a coordinated counterattack. The more individuals present, the less appetizing the encounter becomes. And positioning was a weapon. Sleeping with backs to a rock face or cliff, forming circles around the vulnerable, children, the elderly, the injured, putting the strongest individuals on the outside. This is documented in modern hunter-gatherer societies and was almost certainly practiced by ancient humans too. But there was one more tool that changed everything. We talked about fire in the winter survival video, but fire deserves its own moment here because in the context of predators, fire was not just useful. Fire was transformative. Almost every large predator has an instinctive fear of fire. It is not a learned behavior, it is hardwired. Animals that evolved in a world where wildfires swept through landscapes unpredictably do not need to be taught that fire means danger. They know it, deeply, instinctively. A burning torch held by a human suddenly changes the power dynamic completely. That cave lion, with its superior size and night vision and evolutionary advantages, it does not want to come near fire. A pack of hyenas circling in the dark, a series of torches waved aggressively, and those hyenas are reconsidering their evening plans. Ancient campsites were almost certainly arranged with fire in mind as a perimeter defense. Evidence from archaeological sites suggests central hearths and shelters, but also smaller fires arranged around sleeping areas, creating a ring of light and heat that predators would not willingly cross. This is why the firekeeper was such a critical role. Letting the fire die at night was not just uncomfortable, it was potentially lethal. The fire going out in the dark, surrounded by predators, was a genuine emergency. There is actually something almost cinematic about it, when you think about it. This small group of humans, huddled in firelight, in the middle of a vast dark landscape full of things that want to eat them. The fire is the only thing standing between them and the dark. Keep it burning. Whatever happens, keep it burning. Right, let us talk about what ancient humans were actually carrying, because this is where it gets seriously impressive. The earliest confirmed spears date to around 300,000 years ago. Wooden shafts, fire-hardened at the tip, found at Schöningen in Germany. These were not crude sticks, they were engineered projectiles. Weighted towards the front like modern javelins, balanced for throwing accuracy, and up to 2.5 meters long. Think about what a spear means in a predator encounter. It means you do not have to be within mauling distance to fight back. It means a human, physically weaker than almost everything trying to kill them, can project force across a distance. It is a range advantage. And range advantages in a fight with a cave lion are not a luxury. They are the difference between walking away and not. Later, stone-tipped spears appeared. Flint, obsidian, and other hard stones napped into razor-sharp points and hafted onto wooden shafts. These were genuinely lethal weapons. Archaeological analysis of ancient animal bones has found stone spear tips embedded in them, evidence of successful hunts, but also, almost certainly, of defensive encounters. Then there is the spear thrower, the atlatl, a hooked extension that effectively lengthened the thrower's arm, dramatically increasing the velocity and range of a thrown spear. With an atlatl, a human could throw a spear hard enough to penetrate the thick hide of a mammoth. A cave lion's ribs would offer considerably less resistance. And around 15 to 20,000 years ago, the bow and arrow, the single greatest force multiplier in ancient human history, accurate to 50 meters or more. Fast to deploy, capable of delivering a lethal wound before a predator even knew what had happened. Armed with these technologies, the balance of power shifts noticeably. A group of humans with spears and atlatls is not prey anymore, it is a threat. And over tens of thousands of years, the predators of the Ice Age may well have learned behaviorally, across generations, that humans were not easy targets. Here is something that does not get discussed enough. Dealing with predators was not just a physical challenge, it was a psychological one, and ancient humans were fighting that battle too. Living with constant predator pressure does something to a mind. Modern research on communities in Africa and Asia that still live alongside large predators, lions, tigers, leopards, shows elevated baseline stress, heightened vigilance, disrupted sleep, and a kind of hyper-awareness that never fully switches off. Ancient humans lived with this every single day, every night, the sounds in the dark, the rustle in the grass, the shadow at the tree line. How did they manage it? Partly through the same mechanisms humans still use: story, ritual, and belief. The predators of the Ice Age appear constantly in ancient art. Cave lions are painted at Chauvet Cave with extraordinary detail and naturalism. Bears, wolves, and big cats feature across dozens of ancient sites worldwide. These are not decorations. They are something deeper. Attempts to understand, perhaps to psychologically master, the creatures that threaten them. Some researchers believe that early shamanic traditions, where a ritual specialist became an animal in trance or wore its skin and took its power, were partly rooted in a psychological need to reverse the predator-prey relationship, to stop feeling hunted, to feel, at least in ritual space, like the most powerful creature in the world. Whether or not that is precisely right, what is clear is this: ancient humans did not just deal with predators physically, they processed them culturally. They incorporated them into their worldview, their art, their belief systems. They made meaning out of the terror, which is, when you think about it, a very human thing to do. Now, here is the part where the script flips completely. Because ancient humans did not just defend against predators. At some point, and this is one of the most audacious things in all of human history, they started hunting them. Evidence from multiple Paleolithic sites suggests that humans actively hunted cave lions, cave bears, and wolves, not just for safety, for their skins, their bones, their teeth. Cave bear skulls have been found arranged in what appear to be deliberate ritual displays in caves across Europe. Cave lion teeth and claws appear as jewelry and ornamentation. Wolf and fox pelts were used for clothing. These animals were not just threats to be endured, they were resources to be exploited and eventually trophies to be taken. There is something almost staggering about this when you let it land properly. A group of humans with wooden spears and fire in each other deciding to go into the dark and hunt a cave lion. Not because they had to, because the skin was valuable, because the teeth made good jewelry, because perhaps killing the thing that terrified you was the ultimate proof of competence. And this behavior, going on offense against the apex predators of their world, almost certainly accelerated the extinction of several large predator species by the end of the Pleistocene. Cave lions were gone by around 13,000 years ago, cave bears around 24,000 years ago, cave hyenas around 10,000 years ago. Humans did not just survive the predators of the Ice Age, they outlasted them, all of them. We cannot talk about ancient humans and predators without talking about the single greatest strategic alliance in human history: dogs. The domestication of wolves, the process by which the grey wolf gradually became the domestic dog, began somewhere between 15 and 40,000 years ago. The exact timeline is still debated, but the principle is clear. At some point, humans and wolves figured out that they needed each other. Or more precisely, some wolves figured out that hanging around humans was a good survival strategy. The bold ones, the less fearful ones, the ones that could tolerate proximity to humans and fire, got fed scraps. They survived better. They reproduced more. Over generations, those traits compounded, and humans noticed something remarkable. These semi-tame wolves were incredibly useful. They could smell predators approaching from distances humans could not perceive. Their hearing was sensitive enough to detect movement in the dark that human ears would miss entirely. They barked, loudly, urgently, at anything approaching the camp. In other words, they were the world's first alarm system. A camp with dogs was a dramatically safer camp. No cave lion was going to sneak up on a sleeping group when three alert, agitated canines were raising the alarm at 200 meters. The sleep quality of an ancient human band with dogs was almost certainly meaningfully better than one without. And then there was the hunting angle. Wolves hunt cooperatively, with coordination and communication. Humans hunt cooperatively, with coordination and communication. Together, they became something even more formidable, a combined hunting pack with the intelligence of humans and the speed, scent tracking, and stamina of wolves. The wolf that became the dog may be the most consequential relationship in human history, and it started, at least partly, as a mutual defense against the same predators that threatened them both. So, how did ancient humans deal with predators? They stuck together when everything around them was trying to pick them off. They kept fires burning through the longest, darkest nights. They built weapons that turned the physical disadvantage of being a soft, slow, clawless primate into something a cave lion needed to think twice about. They painted the creatures that terrified them on cave walls and turned fear into culture. They made allies of wolves. And then, with extraordinary audacity, they went on offense. They did not just survive the predators of the Pleistocene, they rewrote the relationship entirely. From prey to competitor to dominant species. In geological terms, it happened almost overnight. The cave lion is gone. The cave bear is gone. The scimitar-toothed cat is gone. You are still here. That is not an accident. That is the result of 50,000 years of accumulated intelligence, cooperation, and a refusal, deeply, stubbornly human, to accept the role the ecosystem had assigned them. Next time something startles you in the dark, just remember, your ancestors stared down cave lions with a wooden stick and a torch. You are made of tougher stuff than you think.